I am especially honored to introduce Stephen Wisnefski. An award-winning reporter, Stephen has become a leading force in the challenging world of modern journalism. Today, as deputy managing editor of the Wall Street Journal, one of the largest and most well-respected newspapers in the world, Stephen has earned the admiration of both readers and peers. Though he manages teams of reporters across digital and print platforms, he still continues to write. His global beat includes Brazil, and this summer you probably saw a few of his byline stories as he covered the Olympics from his old stomping grounds, Sao Paulo and Rio. Last spring, Stephen graciously gave his former English teacher at Xavier, who happens to be my mother, a tour of his very impressive workplace, and lucky I was able to tag along. As we made our way through the Wall Street Journal building, we could see the easy rapport Stephen had with his coworkers and the reporters he managed. Because we, Xavier students, staff, and alumni, share an affiliation with him, I think we can all take pride in the fact that Stephen's innate kindness, intelligence, ability, and faith have earned him a spot on one of the most recognizable mastheads in the world. Congratulations, Stephen, on your well-deserved induction into the Xavier Hall of Fame. Thank you.
I am the very proud mother of the next inductee, Stephen Wisnefski. When he asked me to do this for him, I was very honored, of course. And I sat down to think, review our lives, and to think, what are the important moments? I came out with 5 eye-opener times in our lives since he was born. For all the mothers in here, and the boys in here, when you're a little kid and you're in a public place, boys go to the bathroom with their mother. So I was used to this. We did everything together. We were at the Milwaukee Zoo one Sunday, and I told him, before we go on that little train ride, I think we should go to the bathroom. And he looked at me and he said, I'm going to the men's. And I said, no, you cannot, because I cannot go in there. He said, I'm going to the men's. He wasn't even in kindergarten yet, and I thought, oh my God. Because at the bottom of my heart, I knew that on that particular day, every kidnapper, every child molester in the United States was inside the Milwaukee Zoo in the bathroom. I recovered when I saw him coming out great, and I realized this was one separation moment. Years went by, and one day I was presenting a paper at the University of Wisconsin-Madison on a conference in Latin America. And when the conference ended, 2 ladies approached me and they said, Mrs. Wisnefski, we enjoyed your presentation. I thanked them. And then they said, however, we think you must be Mr. Wisnefski's wife. And I said, no. Mr. Wisnefski is sitting there, my husband. He said, no, I'm not his wife. I mean, I am not. No, they told me, you must be Mr. Wisnefski's mother. And I said, no. I am his wife. I'm not his mother. And they said, really? And I said, yeah, actually his mother has been dead for many years. And they said, we are talking about Mr. Wisnefski of the DOT. And I woke up, oh my God, my son, that's my son. And he's a Mr. Wisnefski. That's something I had never put next to his name. Then Mr. Wisnefski went into the international field, and when he was bureau chief in Brazil, we spent many Christmas and New Year's in there to be with him and to enjoy getting away from Wisconsin. I remember Third eye-opener, seeing how well he communicated, functioned perfectly well in another language. I knew he knew Spanish, grown up with that, and he had been exposed going to visit the family in Chile. That was a big, as a teacher of languages, I was extremely impressed with that achievement. Eventually, his job brought him to Dow Jones. This was Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal. My fourth eye-opener happened when he told me, I'm going to Chile to interview President Piñera, Sebastián Piñera, the President of Chile, and I get a picture of my son inside the government palace with the President of my country. Now, as my President and my little boy, no? That was a big, big moment of recognition for me. The final, number 5, happened about a year ago when, of course, we read and we buy the Wall Street Journal. But seeing in the Wall Street Journal that in the masthead of the paper, in the same group with Rupert Murdoch, was my little boy, the one that separated from me, going to the bathroom all himself. Those were the 5 things that I have to say in reference to his growth. As a mother, I see him, he has a wonderful sense of humor, and he has one ability that to me is extraordinary. He has the power of transforming a regular average day into an exceptional one. All the time, it's fun to be with him. He has this into his sons and his wife. Where I look at these kids, they don't say, oh, summer is over now. They look forward to every season, to everything. Everything you're doing with Stephen is a very extraordinary, special thing. So that, as a mother, makes me very happy. Finally, to the students at Xavier High School, where I spent 20 wonderful years, I know, you know, your parents know, you are God's gift to your parents, to your teachers. You have been entrusted to your teachers. Your teachers are the true architects of all the foundations of your life. You thank them today. They are, because as we very well know, you cannot build a penthouse without a good basement. Thank you very much.
Mr. Wisnefski is going to have a hard time following up Mrs. Wisnefski. She was amazing, right? I mean, she was a fantastic teacher here for many years. One of the best parts about being here today is that I get to share this day with my parents, who love Xavier as much as I hope all of you do. They were fantastic teachers, and I learned from them a great deal, just like I learned from all my Xavier teachers. I'm elated to be here today. It's such an honor to be recognized by such a special place, some place that meant so much to me. A place that stands for the highest standards in education and the highest standards in Christian values. I'm also honored to be inducted alongside Mark and Tony. I made an appearance in a Wisconsin high school yearbook once, and I remember the words to this day. It said I had displayed a deadly shooting touch from the outside at times. I still remember it to this day. And Tony was my 7th grade basketball coach at Catholic Central. And I'm fairly certain that that was the decisive factor. Your masterful job coaching that year was the decisive factor in your selection to the Hall of Fame. It's also a humbling experience. There are countless Xavier alums living exemplary lives around the world. Many from my own graduating class of 1986, and they are all very deserving of recognition as well, so I feel very fortunate. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for instilling in me the values that have allowed a day like today to be possible. I'm also fortunate to have my wife and 2 sons here, Patricia, Maximilian, Leo. Thank you so much for your support and for your love and for making me a better person than I could ever be without you. I also want to thank Laura again for the kind gesture of nominating me, and of course to Lisa and everyone who organized this wonderful event. I love Xavier High School, and I've always been exceptionally proud to call myself a graduate. I'm sure all of you feel the same way about Xavier and the community that surrounds it. You are all very privileged to be here. Please do thank your teachers and thank your parents, as Mark said. The years you spend at Xavier give you the tools you need to lead a happy, successful, and virtuous life. What comes next is up to you. So, I thought I'd take the opportunity to pass along a little of what I've learned in the years since I left Xavier. Much of this relates to things I've experienced in a work environment, but there are certainly broader lessons here. I'm going to start with an overarching principle that I base all my decisions about hiring and promoting people on. Be smart and be agreeable. This sounds straightforward, but those words comprise a wide range of attributes. Being smart doesn't just mean that you have a high IQ or that you've gotten the best grades or that you can solve some complicated math problem. It also means that you're inquisitive. It means that you have a hunger for knowledge. It means that you're creative, that you make sensible decisions, and that you're always trying to improve. Being agreeable means, of course, that you're kind, but it means so much more. It means that you're easy to work with, that you're a team player, that you're generous with your time, that you don't gossip, that you smile, and much, much more. Certainly, innate talent and technical skills that you acquire are important, but being smart and being agreeable are what will truly set you apart. For me, when I'm trying to fill a job opening, I can accept a lack of experience or a lack of particular expertise if the candidate is especially smart and agreeable. I can teach someone the technical aspects of the job. I can't teach them to be smart or to be agreeable. Next one, work hard and be reliable. It's important to go above and beyond what's required and to do what you say you will do. Friends and colleagues quickly lose faith in people who are lazy, undependable, or dishonest. In the context of a job, working hard could mean working long hours. Sometimes that's required. But what it really means is being productive, being diligent, saying you're going to do something and then delivering on that promise. It means being the kind of person who says, sure thing, you got it, on it right away, and then doing what you said you would do. It means being a doer, not a talker, not someone who follows and allows everyone else to do the heavy lifting while you take credit for it. It also means not thinking you're above certain tasks. It's important to pay your dues. I often come across young professionals who feel entitled to a bigger role than they really have the experience to do. And they refuse or they resent to do entry-level work. Don't be like those people. Every experience you have teaches you something. It prepares you for the next step. It makes you better. Be prepared. Number 3. You always have to put your best foot forward. You have to be as ready as you can for any situation. You've probably heard the saying from Ben Franklin, by failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. That is absolutely true. I can't tell you how often I interview people who haven't done the most basic preparation for our meeting. They haven't done research on the company. They haven't thought of some ideas that they might try to implement if they were in the job. They haven't even read the Wall Street Journal, which is the biggest sin. By the way, you should all read the Wall Street Journal. It's the best publication anywhere. When you fail to prepare, you are limiting your opportunities, and you're being disrespectful to others who expect the best from you. And that could be applied here at Xavier. It'll be applied throughout your life. Also, it's not just about preparing for scheduled events like a game or a show or a particular meeting that you know is on your calendar. It's also about being ready to take advantage of opportunities that could arise at unexpected times and could be life-changing. Which leads me to the following tip, one that's particularly relevant to me. Be adventurous. Make the most of opportunities that come your way, even if they take you out of your comfort zone. I had the good fortune of speaking a foreign language when I was growing up, and also traveling quite a lot, as my mom alluded to. Once I graduated from high school, I had an itch to continue seeing the world, and when I was in college, I had some opportunities to continue traveling abroad. And that was fantastic. I truly was lucky. Once I graduated, I went to work as a transportation planner for the state of Wisconsin once I graduated from college. I enjoyed my job, I had a great group of friends, and I absolutely loved living in Madison. One of the people I befriended on the job was a guy named John. He was an oddball of the first order, and he'd be the first person to tell you that, so I don't feel bad saying that. Though he was American, he lived in Brazil for more than 2 decades. He was doing all sorts of jobs there, and he had for some time worked as a journalist. John was at the DOT, the Department of Transportation in Madison, while he was getting treatment for cancer. John was 25 years older than me. Despite that difference in age, we formed a bond, in large part because of our shared interest in Latin America. As my mom said, I was born in Chile, and I traveled a lot when I was growing up to Chile and also to a few other places in Latin America. John had lived in Brazil, so we had a connection. He was an interesting guy. John recovered, thankfully, and he's still alive today. He moved back to Brazil, and about a year after going back to Brazil, he called me out of the blue. He said he had an opportunity. He had just been appointed as the English language editor of a Brazilian newspaper, and he needed translators. Did I want the job? He was going to call me back in a week to see if I'd accept. So I weighed the pros and cons. I'd never been to Brazil. I didn't speak Portuguese. I loved Madison. But this was a golden opportunity to experience something new and to grow. What did I have to lose, I thought. So I drove up to Appleton to tell my parents of my harebrained scheme, which to them didn't actually sound all that harebrained. Each of them had made a decision years earlier to move halfway around the world to pursue what they wanted to do. They fully supported it, and I'm forever thankful of that. They didn't stand in the way at all. Once I decided I would go, most people were supportive. Some thought I was crazy. Who would leave a great job in a great place like Madison? Who moves to a developing country like Brazil if you've never even visited the country? It was the best decision I ever made. I took my first footsteps into journalism, and I met Patty, my wife, on my first day on the job. I don't horse around, I get the job done. Several months later, once I had learned to speak Portuguese reasonably well and had become familiar with Brazilian news, I met the bureau chief for the Dow Jones News Service in Brazil. We met at a party. She said, hey, you know, I have an opening. You've been working as a translator. Why don't you come take the test? The writing test, the journalism test. And I really honestly thought to be a journalist, you needed to have studied journalism, just like you need to study medicine if you're going to be a doctor, just like you need to study law if you're going to be a lawyer. It turns out you didn't. At least I didn't in my case. So I took the test, I interviewed, I was hired as a correspondent. I was completely unprepared for that. But I was hired, I was fortunate, I was in the right place at the right time. Now, nearly 2 decades later, I am still with Dow Jones, the company that owns Dow Jones Newswires and the Wall Street Journal. And I've had countless opportunities, all because I took a chance. I grabbed an opportunity, I changed my life completely with a decision, all for the better. Another takeaway here is that you should be open to all sorts of people. You never know what that when that person that you meet, someone who you wouldn't have thought you'd have a connection with, could open up entirely new avenues for you. And one final point here, I think it's really important that you put yourself in challenging situations. Situations where you don't think that you can handle it, where you're not quite sure that you have what it takes. When you do that, normally you'll rise to the occasion. Next, keep learning. You'll never know everything you need to know. You'll never have all the answers. Do all you can to enrich yourself. Every experience is an opportunity to learn. Read, keep up with the news, travel if you can, study a foreign language, get to know all sorts of people. Also, and this is very important, be receptive to new ideas. Be open to the possibility of having your mind changed. It's very important. Don't assume that you know everything and that someone else who has a different viewpoint doesn't know what they're talking about. Be open to change. And learn from your mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, you're not really trying. And each mistake gives you the opportunity to get better. Number 6, I'm almost done, don't worry. Communicate and collaborate. Things go haywire when people don't communicate effectively. It sounds simple, but it takes work to communicate well. I always think it's better to over-communicate rather than leave people wondering where things stand. Don't allow issues to remain unresolved. Also, pick up the phone, walk over and talk to people. I know it's very easy to avoid that these days, but it's much easier to communicate when you're actually talking to someone. On a related note, here's some advice I learned early in my career as a manager. Please remember this. You praise in public, you criticize in private. Extremely important. Praise in public, criticize in private. Number 7, be appreciative and stay humble. Don't take anything for granted or assume that you're entitled to it. Remember where you came from, the lessons you learned, and the people who helped you succeed. I make a point of always thanking the people who were most instrumental in my lives whenever anything good happens to me. So the people who gave me that opportunity, the people who challenged me to be better. You should do that too because it makes them feel really good. It's important. Also, you have a responsibility to guide others, to help them succeed. Be a sounding board. Be a trusting advisor. Provide whatever assistance you can. This is my final point. Do what makes you happy. Frankly, life is too short not to. You have to enjoy your work and you have to feel it's valuable, or else you won't be good at the job, and frankly, you'll be miserable. I'd say it's especially important when you're young to do what makes you happy. Of course, I say that within reason. Not everything that makes you happy is good for you. But as I was saying earlier, taking chances is important. If it doesn't work out, you can always shift course. Outside of work, focus on your family, on your friends, on your community. Make sure that those relationships don't suffer as a result of your work or other distractions. They are what matters most. So I'll just finish with the following. Don't put pressure on yourself to map out the perfect life or the perfect career. That's unrealistic and it sets you up for disappointment. It could also keep you from realizing your full potential. You don't have to have all the answers now, or even 10 years from now. 10 years after my high school graduation, that was the year I went to Brazil. I really didn't have any answers. But I was on an adventure and I was growing. You never know where life will take you, but I promise, you won't go wrong if you remember the lessons your parents taught you, if you remember what you learned during your years at Xavier, if you stay true to the values of your Catholic faith, and if you pursue your passion. Thank you very much for this tremendous honor.